In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you. In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
Good evening there, and welcome to the latest Elite FPL podcast, where myself and Jason will be reacting to today's games that have taken place. Of course, we had Chelsea and Norwich this morning, and of course we had the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I have no idea what happened. I'm completely blind to this. I am aware what happened in the first 45 minutes. So at half-time, I was aware what happened. I've kind of got an inkling as to what's happening in the Man United game based on my housemate, but also based on Jason's demeanour. He basically hasn't said a word. Before we get into any of this, let's start by doing something happy. We hit 2,000 subscribers last night. In fact, we hit 2001 last night. And there we are. You know what I said? I did say that I had something better than vodka. Well, I was going to eat a 2,000 calorie meal during the stream, but instead I've already done that because I was hungry. For anybody that wants to know what I had, FPL Booner, if you want any nutritional advice to get big, this is what you do. You go to a chip shop, you buy extra large chips, extra large fish, and buy a cheesecake. So there we are. That's probably about 3,000 calories. But like I said, me and Jason, thank you so much for subscribing and supporting this show. Really, really appreciate it. I'm going to pour myself a shot. And what I'm going to let Jason do is reveal to me exactly what happened in the full-time results in today's games, starting with Norwich versus Chelsea. So cheers.
Is my mic live? I don't even know if it is. Yeah, you're probably wondering why I'm quite red at the moment, and that's because I'm in a submarine. I'm in red alert, and I'm sinking to the bottom of the ocean. And to be honest with you, I am absolutely fuming for this game week. Just absolutely disgusted with it, and I can't contain my anger right now. Right, so Friday night happened. Aston Villa won 2-0. Today's games, Norwich started so well. Norwich versus Chelsea, goals galore. Norwich getting 2, Chelsea winning the game with 3. Tammy Abraham with 2 goals. Mason Mount getting on the score sheet. Pookie getting a goal and an assist. Now that's where everything ended for me. That's where the game week ended.
Well,
and Brighton decided to play at home to Southampton today. You know, I don't think they decided.
I know what happened. So
decided to let 2 goals in. One was an absolute world-class shot, apparently, from Jen Po, whatever it's Jiznen Po, and then Redmond with a late goal to just finish him off. Matt Ryan, see you later, mate.
So it ended 2-0, did it?
Yeah.
No Matt Ryan save points, no bonus points coming of him?
Bonus points currently, Trossard on 20 points, Trossard, Redmond, Vestergaard. So no Matt Ryan bonus points. Don't be stupid, Steve-O. They can get one time a year.
Go on then, on to the next game.
Next game, Manchester United versus Crystal Palace.
Right, okay.
I just want to say thank you, Leozzi, for the donation of $4.99. You don't have to do that, mate. You don't have to do that. Ain't gonna make me any happier.
No, I'm drunk now. Donate as much as you want. Come on, Jace, let's hear this. Because I'm fascinated by this. This is why you're in such a sour mood. I'm assuming Wan-Bissaka was sent off because...
well, he might as well have been. I mean, to be honest, I mean, right. So Man United 1, Crystal Palace 2.
What? Really? Wow. Oh.
To be honest, I don't want to go on a rant, but VAR this weekend, VAR today, absolute waste of space, waste of time having VAR, absolute waste of time. The Chelsea game earlier on today, Azpilicueta got kicked in the knee, completely just dismissed by the VAR, and again today, you know, with Cahill's challenge on Martial, I just don't understand how he didn't get sent off. But anyway, yeah. So James with the 2 late goals in that game. James getting a late goal. It was basically 1-0 through the whole of the game.
Who scored for Palace?
Well, Van Arnold got the late. So it started with the Ayew, and now let me explain the Ayew goal. Right, so ball gets knocked up in the air. United defence, Lindelof challenges Schlupp, loses, a challenge against Schlupp, and then the ball gets flicked on behind Lindelof. Maguire, I don't know where he was. He was on, I don't know, just completely just out of position. Just bystander, innocent bystander. And, you know, and Ayew threw on goal. You know, the world-class player, Ayew, yeah, made just a great finish. And, yeah, first shot on goal, they score. The rest of the game was United passing the ball around the Crystal Palace box, really. A penalty was given to United. Guess who steps up?
No, you're joking.
Marcus Rashford.
Oh, he didn't miss, did he?
He hit the post. And goes out for a goal kick. And literally, at that point, let's not forget that Wan-Bissaka got yellow carded for having his shirt pulled. Wan-Bissaka got yellow carded for having his shirt pulled. So, yeah, just gets.
What do you mean?
Right, Wan-Bissaka gets his shirt pulled. I can't remember who it was now. Was it Zaha, guys? I can't even remember. I'm so angry. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Zaha or I don't know. And basically, he's getting his shirt pulled, and it's shoulder to shoulder. Steve-O, it's shoulder to shoulder. Within the first seconds of the second half. He just gets a yellow card. Bear in mind it's just infuriating. So basically, Wan-Bissaka's got 0 points, and Rashford's got 0 points. So yeah, I'm currently on 11 points -4, plus the Pookie 2 point. So to be honest with you, I just want to yeah. I'm not in the mood to talking about this game week right now.
And the rest of the results, Jason?
Oh, there was other games on. Yeah, there was other games on, weren't there? Yeah, Sheffield United they lost to Leicester. Anyone that brought Lundstrom in got a mighty 0.
Oh, what was the score?
2-1.
I know it was 1-0. 2-1.
Vardy with the first goal, then not Harvey Barnes, Ashley Barnes.
I'm
the other way round.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Harvey Barnes. So yeah, you got McBurney. I don't know what it is, but I just Soyuncu got the assist. How funny is that?
I'm assuming. Perez, did he do anything? No,
nope.
Nothing.
No, Perez didn't do a thing. So
He's
yeah,
gone.
you holding on to Perez. Yeah.
Waste of space. He's got one game left. Bournemouth next. If he does nothing in that.
Oh, this is the big one now. You remember Haller for West Ham? Yeah. Well, they won 3-1 against Watford, and Haller got 2 goals, and Noble with a penalty. Yeah, and to be honest with you, that's enough talking for me. So bonus points as it stands. Gray, Haller, and Noble getting those bonus points, and Fabianski with a couple of saves, but yeah. To be honest, it was a really disappointing game week, and the only solace I take right now is the fact that I've had a really bad week, a really, really bad week. But I think a lot of people are in the same sort of boat to me, so I'm fuming. I'm mainly fuming at United, to be honest with you. I just absolutely just angry.
What do you, based on this United result, are you they drew 1-1 with Wolves? They've now lost to Crystal Palace. They had that. Yeah, they deserved to beat Chelsea, but the score flattered to deceive. Are you a concerned United fan?
Well, I won't be recommending anyone bringing Wan-Bissaka in at the moment. I won't be recommending anyone bringing in Rashford. Put it that way. I'm just. I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss at the moment because United, they were dominant in that game. All the statistics were in United's favour, apart from the main statistic, and that was the shots weren't on target for the majority of the game, and the main statistic is the goals, and we just doesn't. United don't seem to need many chances made against them to concede. That's what I'm getting at. They give the opposition one or two chances and it's pretty much a goal. So I've already hit the wild card button. No, I haven't really. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Well, funny you say it, because I actually toyed with the wild card earlier on. I just took out a few players and everything, and I like the team, but I just don't need to hit the wild card button at the moment. All these people that are like, I'm planning to do, like yourself, planning to do it in game week 4 and everything. I just think, for me personally, I'm just like, it's like you said last night about the people that have played their chips and everything. I saw somebody actually in Davey FPL's mini league that he set up playing a free hit, and I looked at it and I thought, it's just awful. Like, I think a lot of people genuinely that are playing their chips are, as Charlie, aka Tika Mo Salah, actually mentioned, that he only was was it him or Dereco? It was one of the two. They said that they're only playing their chips so they could win the Manager of the Month award. I mean, as perverse as that is, I'm like you last night. I'm very, very confident. I mean, just to let everybody know, obviously, I'm stating the blinking obvious. There is a game coming up in a minute, so it's Liverpool versus Arsenal. Myself and Jason are going to be here for, well, however long Jason wants to go on for. Basically, it's very, very down in the dumps, shall we say, at the moment, and I can understand why. It sounds like basically Man United were awful. I think we need to just quickly discuss this Liverpool Arsenal game. What's the team use, Jason?
I have absolutely no idea.
Right then, well, let's find out what the team use is, because I'm assuming it is as we all expect, to be honest with you. The interesting thing is, will Trent Alexander-Arnold start? And the simple answer is, well, I'm looking at Fantasy Football Scout site, and the simple answer is yes, he does. So I'll read out the team news. It's Adrian in goal, Robertson, Van Dijk, Matip, Alexander-Arnold, Henderson, Wijnaldum. It's got to be Salah. Right, I'm assuming the tweet doesn't come up. So Wijnaldum, Fabinho, Mane, Firmino, and Salah. And then for Arsenal, we've got Leno, Monreal, David Luiz, Socrates, Maitland-Niles, Xhaka, Guendouzi, Pepe starts. Right, okay, this is interesting. Ceballos, Willock, and I'm assuming Aubameyang and Lacazette as well. So, yeah, it looks like this is going to be as we all expect. I mean, just to remind everybody, I went with a 4-2 victory to Liverpool. Jason went 5-3. Charlie went 4-3, and the history's going 4-1. And, yeah, I'm really, really fascinated by this game. It doesn't make much of a difference for most of us because we've all pretty much got the same players. It's for the people that have got double Liverpool defence. That's the one where people are going to be really, really interested to see if Arsenal can breach that. I've just noticed here that Martial got the assist for Daniel James. Yeah. So Martial continues his point scoring at the moment. I really do think, I mean, I'll ask you straight away, Jason. I know you're a bit down at the moment with Man U, but is Martial somebody that everybody should pretty much be getting into their teams? Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it is.
Who just of interest, if Rashford had scored, who would have got the assist, or was Rashford the one that was fouled?
McTominay, I believe.
Right, okay.
There was people saying Rash would have been Martial, but I think it was McTominay that got fouled. But apparently you said the wrong team news out.
I'm just reading off the Fantasy Football Scouts, so don't bloody blame me. Crying out loud.
But anyway, I mean, to be honest with you, it's... let me just bring it up on the Twitter.
Oh, Lacazette benched. Right, okay. Wow, is that Lacazette represents a whole team, does he? Bloody hell.
Yeah,
right, okay. So it's not Lacazette.
Yeah, shocking game week. Let's go with your team, shall we, Steve-O?
I don't have a clue. Let's have a look at my team. I don't have a clue what I did. Oh, it's not that many points. I only had Pookie playing today and like Perez. 12 points, yeah. Rubbish.
Yeah, Pookie. So you've really benefited by not having any Man United players.
I've still got 8 players left though to play.
Yeah.
But I'm on a -8, of course. I'm on a -8, and then we all know. I'll just reveal my bad luck from last night. I got rid of Wesley for one of either Pookie or Barnes, whichever way you want to look at it, and we all know what Wesley did last night. Not only did he score, he actually got the 3 bonus as well. which I was shocked at. I played Digne. I've got Gilbert on the bench, but I'm glad that I've got Gilbert on the bench because for the simple fact that it sounded like he was one of the best players on the pitch last night. I'd like to think he's now cemented his place. So it means that he may not be a player that I need to get rid of, which is good for me. Fascinatingly as well, Cantwell. We both you and I dismissed FPL Booner, of course, having Cantwell in the starting 11, and lo and behold, he comes up with a goal, Jason.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, he did, yes. You're very dejected here, Jason. It's very surprising. Normally you're quite talkative. You're normally wanting to get things off your chest, to say a few things, and this is the first time I've heard you quite quiet, mate.
I've got no happiness in me at the moment. Literally, I've just been drained of all happiness. Literally, it's a Steve-O show. I
mean, looking at, what do you call it, FPL Booner's team, he's on 21 points from a wild card. He's just going to miss out on bonus points for Cantwell. Although, wow. Emerson could have got some bonus points, but he's going to go to Pookie. Abraham with 3, Pookie with 2, and Mason Mount, who I'm pleased to say that I told my good friend Mr. Reed to bring in. Well, I basically confirmed what he was going to do. He said that he wanted to bring in. Here we go, Jason. You can get a sound check for this now. Fucking hell, man. Ridiculous. But
it's not the ice cream van, it's the smoke alarm.
Fire alarm.
Okay.
So basically, let's just let that. Just mute me, Jason, and speak.
It's all the fires in your team that you're putting out. So I've just muted him. Right. So Booner has played his wild card. He's on 21 points. He's got a lot of players to play. I said to him, I thought he wasted his wild card. Could it come back to haunt me? I mean, it all depends on Harry Kane. It all depends on Walker Peters, and obviously he did have Wan-Bissaka in. But he did have Martial, so I mean, yeah, he's on course to gain quite a few points already this game week. So well done. But you have lost your wild card. So is it finished? It's finished now, isn't it? Your smoke alarm.
Yeah.
Let's take this filter off because I think I've been on red for quite some time now.
Let's get some calls in, Jason. There are people in the waiting room. We are wanting to take people's calls about how their game week's gone so far, more importantly, their thoughts on the game week so far. I'd like to hear from FPL Hot Sauce.
FPL Hot Sauce, you there? Hello, FPL Hot Sauce. How you doing?
Hi, mate. You all right? Just let me pause the stream. There we go. How are you doing?
Yeah, Steve-O's doing well.
Well, as a fellow Man United fan, I'm sure you know how Jason's feeling, but how are you feeling?
Oh, mate, I was so ready to go on tilt. Like, I activated my wild card after watching that Norwich game. I was fuming.
Oh, really?
I'm fuming, mate. Yeah, honestly, just... like, if you glance over my old team... Now, obviously, I've just put my wild card draft on the Rate My Team when you went on air. But if you go and look at what's happened to me this game week.
Where are you in the cash league, mate?
I think it was around 30th, somewhere like that. I'll just.
Oh yeah, there we are, 30th. Bang on, yeah. Right, okay. So today you've got 6 points. But how many players, more importantly, had you had playing? And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 players playing today. But Hollerbath is getting you 0, Frederick 2, Henderson 1, Digne with 1, and Perez with 2. So. Yeah, I can see why you put the wild card.
The issue is, right, I've been absolutely battered by price falls. It's just not even funny. Like, I'm going to just go through it now, and I'm going to try and keep calm because Wilson's gone down. King has gone down. Perez has gone down. That absolute waste of space, Hollerbass has gone down. I've had about six players all go down, and then every single player that I would go and replace them for has all gone up in price. So I've just been abused by these people, and do you know what? I'm going to deliberately call them casuals because I know you don't like it, but that's exactly what you are. You're all the casual players who all join the work leagues, who all play early on, and then make all these price rises happen. They have absolutely destroyed my patient approach.
To play devil's advocate, isn't that the whole point of the game, though? You're supposed to be bringing in form players.
Yes, Steve-O, but these people, like, if you remember, every manager was saying, I'm going to be patient this year.
That's a load of rubbish.
I'm going to get these players in, and they've got 7-8 good fixtures. I'm going to give them 8 games. No, you're not, because you turfed them out. So don't get me wrong. I have sat back, and I've got myself to blame. I am not disputing that. I sat back, not holding off on maybe transfers, holding off on the wild card. So I am part to blame. But I was fuming because it's now been softened by this. Everybody's just had a shocking game week now because of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. But can you imagine while I'm watching the Chelsea game and I go and see Pookie take off and everybody on this was having a Pookie party and I'm sat there with my probably 99.6 valued team. United let me down on a 4-fold, but we won't talk about that because Lise Marshall didn't do anything and Wan-Bissaka conceded. But that's not the point. I'm a United fan, so I'm also fuming. So it's just been the most disastrous game week. And yeah, as you can see, I've hit the wild card as a result. So
and just to clarify, you've now posted your team, your wild card team, in the Discord. Rate my team.
Yeah, and you're gonna like it. You are gonna like it, Steve-O. Go and have a look, my friend. You will.
When did you post it? When did you post it?
Stunning.
Oh yeah, I see.
Pretty much when you come in here.
Yeah, okay.
I hope if you feel it deserves the word stunning, then go ahead, Steve-O. Take it away. Tell me what you think.
Okay. Oh, here we are. Right. Okay. So we're going with a 3-4-3. We're going with Tom Heaton in goal. Soyuncu, however you pronounce his name for Leicester. Van Dijk, Walker, Mason Mount, Sterling. Oh, you're going with Salah, De Bruyne, Allaire, Abraham, Pookie. Then on the bench we've got Cantwell, Hanwell, and Lundstrom. I wouldn't say it's stunning. It just seems that you've gone on with the Gameweek 3 bandwagon. You're just doing what you hate the casuals doing, which is jumping on board.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of tongue-in-cheek, mate. I was hoping you'd notice. I'm just obviously... They'll probably all go up just based on this game week, so...
Yes.
I've got all week to tinker now, obviously, but they're there to try and catch a few price rises. I do like the look of Mount, though, I must admit, and...
No, I agree with you. I think that Mason Mount for Chelsea is going to be one of their star players this year. He's got am I right in saying he's got 1 assist and 1 goal this season so far? Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty good in 3 games, getting that for a player that nobody expects to play. He's only 6 million in a Chelsea team that are just free flowing, don't care about defence whatsoever. Frank Lampard is just doing what he did at Derby, which is just score goals. Tammy Abraham, it's pretty obvious he's cemented his place. He's cemented his place as the first team striker for Chelsea. He's now off the mark. Based on the celebrations that I heard today from the players, it looks like they're all as one, which is a very, very good sign. I think they're all going to be happy for Abraham. Allaire, great fixtures. Not going to lie, Allaire has got some very, very good fixtures, and we all know what Boa Rice said to us about him. Appears to be an excellent player when he was in the Bundesliga, so he should be very good for the Premier League. Big physical player. Pookie, don't need to talk about him. The 3 City assets are about as standard as you get. Salah, Van Dijk, the Liverpool cover. I mean, why Salah rather than Mane? Are you potentially going to be bringing in Mane later in the week, or are you just going to stick with Salah?
No, I'm sticking with Salah. I can't believe how many people have downgraded. When the game launches, you look for your value, you look for the price points that the game have come up with, and for Mane to be only 1 mil less than Salah, it's just a no-brainer. Don't get me wrong, it's trajecting as though Mane can keep up with him or outdo him, but for me, it's not even a question. I'd like to have them both, but there's no way on this planet my FPL team is going without Salah just to have Mane when it's only 1 million. So.
Yeah. How many, in all seriousness, it comes next week, Saturday. How many of these players are you likely to have in this team, and which ones?
I'm actually, Sterling, Salah, De Bruyne are going nowhere. I can't see Van Dijk going anywhere. I'll go with one of them Chelsea players, so that it'll either be Mount or Abraham, because they've got some decent fixtures, and as you can see there, they've got Sheffield United at home. That looks quite good. I'm tempted to roll with that team because that Norwich and West Ham game is going to be 4-3. None of them can defend. Norwich they have about 6 men forward, and then when they lose the ball, they're out of shape. So I can now get on board the Pookie party at least. So there's a good chance there, mate, that 7 of those players will maybe there. But Hanley and Lundstrom are 2 starting 4 mil defenders, so that's the reason what they're there for, because I think they both start. So we can't get any cheaper than that. Nailed on.
Jason, what are your thoughts on this wild card team? It's certainly, but I've got to say though, Hot Sauce, it's by far better than your initial team, the team that's up on screen. If you know what I mean.
My team just
they're players of the moment right now, aren't they? And anyone that's been playing FPL for more than one season will know that you're gonna have bad game weeks. And like, I was listening to you talking about being frustrated that you haven't jumped on a lot of the popular bandwagons and that you're now being priced out. But unfortunately, that happens every season. If you go back through the stats of all the transfers that are done in the first few game weeks, you can see last year, the year before last, there was plenty of price rises. And it's just about identifying the players that you think are going to be necessary going forward and getting on them before they go up in price. Like, I brought in Pookie. I saw that he was a talent. I mean, there was a lot of talk about him pre-season as well. Obviously, it's just last year in the Championship, he was very prolific, and he's again proven today that he's able to score from crazy. I mean, that goal he scored, that angle was ridiculous. I mean, he had no right to score that, and he just slotted it. Well, Kepa almost saved it, but at the end of the day, he's a class act, and Norwich got him on a free, and it's unbelievable. But I mean, looking at the rest of your team, Abraham looked good. Him and Lampard seem to have like a bromance going on at the moment. I think he's going to probably be getting starts or short starts for Chelsea. Got a decent game up next. I think that the rest of your team is. I mean, gone with the Chelsea again with Mount, but I think it's a good team, man. It's a good team. But honestly, you've got 3 Norwich in there. You've got Cantwell, Hanley, and Pookie. I don't know what other to say. It's just basically this week's star players. Well, barring obviously the Man City and Liverpool.
Yeah, no, there'll be a few tweaks. I've just put that up now. I say I've rage activated it. Maybe I'm a bit annoyed. I've done it but I didn't have the 3 o'clock games hindsight. I did that during half time of the Norwich game, so I was fuming, and then I just expected maybe a 2-0 United win, probably Martial, Rashford scoring, Wan-Bissaka clean sheet. I knew Perez won't do anything. I made the mistake as well. Logically, I thought if I start both Hollebass and Fredericks, I thought maybe one of them just gets a clean sheet. No, it was 1-1 after 20 minutes. So then I was thinking, fair enough, I've got King on my bench, but he could nab a penalty against City. So it's just been a nightmare. But I said it in Discord, there's one player who can save my game week, and that's who my captain's on. If Harry Kane gets a brace, it'll keep me afloat, and now I can come in with my wild card. So maybe okay if Kane can do the business.
I mean, I'm absolutely fuming with my game week. We've had the same amount of players play, and it's 6 points is it's just FPL, isn't it? The highs and the lows. You've just got to roll with it. Like you said, if Harry Kane scores well for you at home to Newcastle, Sterling doesn't do anything, Salah doesn't do anything, then you're gonna hopefully recoup those points.
Yeah, cheers, boys. I've appreciated it. It's very therapeutic and calming, as Steve always say. So I do appreciate that. And I'm sure I can get maybe a bit of advice in the week once I've had a look at my wild card again, because I've got I'm in a good spot now. So I weren't planning. I was always planning an early wild card, and I'm annoyed that I did it on the back of a rage move. But how can you carry on going through the game without having Pookie in your team and watching all them players just lose 0.1? So I had to make a move. I had to sort it.
No, I think you've left. I mean, I think you left it. Obviously, you didn't do the transfers that you probably should have done. To get on like the price rises. Obviously, you're talking about Halabas. I mean, the thing is, you've still got Perez in your team. So I got Wilson out. I mean, he's still got to play against Man City. You watch him do something now.
Do you know what?
You wait. Wilson will do something, against home to City.
Maybe it's just some food for thought going forward for anyone else on the listeners. One thing that did mess me up as well, just forget the wild card a minute, but I did a hokey cokey with Kane to Aubameyang back to Kane, which meant that I had no transfers to sort of play with. Whereas, like, if I would have rolled my transfer and just ridden out Kane for the City game, banked a transfer, I would have had 2 transfers at the start of the week, and I probably would have moved Wilson down to Pookie straight away. So sometimes when you do the hokey cokey, you are kind of, destroying sort of some of the moves that you can make. So especially early on, I should have realised the market is going to go crazy, and maybe it is nice to have maybe 2 transfers in the bank is more powerful than just shifting around on 2 players such as Kane and Aubameyang. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that you shouldn't be scared of taking a -4 every now and again. Not that it worked out for me this week, but it's certainly making transfers you think are going to improve your team. Don't be too scared about taking hits, and yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go and watch the Liverpool game. So
enjoy the Liverpool.
Maybe I'm blown away by Ceballos.
Well, let's hope Ceballos saves. I need Ceballos to save my game week, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you what, if he gets a goal and assist, I'll come back with a stream later on to just celebrate. I'll go down to the shop and get some vodka. That's right.
Cheers for getting me on, boys. Appreciate that.
Cheers, Hot Sauce. Take care, mate. Cheers.
See you, mate.
We have FPL Penguin there, Jason.
FPL Penguin, you're live on air. Can you hear me?
Hey, how's it going? How you doing, Jason?
Yeah, I'm amazingly good, thank you.
I just wanted to say it.
Yeah, can the guys that come on, don't ask me how I am.
But you must be gutted, man. You must be like, I need to see the VAR decisions on Match of the Day, because it brings my blood to a boil just thinking about it. Like, VAR was touted to be this thing that was supposed to remove the controversy in football. Absolutely shocking decisions today, in my opinion. And, I'm quite shocked Palace beat United, to be honest with you. Really shocked.
Well,
I need to look later.
I was. No, I mean, it's
crazy.
No, fair play to Palace. I mean, they were clinical with their chances, and they won the game. But the Rashford penalty miss was like a stake through the heart, really. And because, like, was he going to take it? Of course he was going to take it, because obviously the Pogba miss last week, and just hit. It was a good penalty. I know it sounds silly. It was a good penalty, but it hit the inside of the post. So picture this, Steve-O, as well, because I know you didn't watch it. He hit the penalty, hit the inside of the post on the left-hand side, went past the goalkeeper and out for a goal kick. Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it's just
unlucky.
Yeah. But
talking of game weeks, Penguin, you're 34th as of last night in our Challenge League, and you played your wild card. You're on 22 points, barring 2 0 points off Wan-Bissaka and Lundstrom. You got points from Heaton, Martial, Pookie. You've captained Kane. Are you confident? 34th, Jason. You must be confident moving forward in this game week.
Yeah, it was such a kind of a bold move bringing Heaton in, but I did like his fixtures, and I was very surprised. Well, kind of surprised they kept a clean sheet against Everton, and they played all right. Maybe Wesley getting a goal finally. So, well, unlucky for you, Steve. I mean, it happens to everyone. Bring someone out who's out of form, and then they score, don't they? Week after. Happened to me in the past. Happened to me. You're not alone. But yeah, I'm happy with Heaton getting clean sheet. Pookie again. Pookie train, getting a goal and assist. Martial getting assist. Happy about that. Just gutted about the Saka Lundstrom. I knew it would be a bold move for that, because as you can see, I put so much money in that midfield and that forward line, and then that defence went a bit, I don't know. I am shocked that Palace did score a goal past United. Never mind 2 goals. And I don't mean to mention it again, Jason, to wind you up, but I'm just saying I was very surprised. That's all. Very surprised.
Can I ask you, Penguin, what made you go with Kane captain rather than Mane or Sterling?
Well, I just like the look of Kane, and also Newcastle. Things are 50-50 there, and I just feel confident just taking that punt. I know a lot of people going for mainly Sterling as captain against Bournemouth. I know I had choices like KDB as well and Mane tonight. I just feel confident with a Kane. I think he's going to probably score 2 goals at least against Newcastle. I think that's going to happen tomorrow.
You're not concerned about his, of course, his history being that he's played Newcastle 5 times and only scored 1 goal.
And it was 1-0 last season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In fact,
same
it's
been 1-0.
Sorry.
1-0 the last 2 fixtures at White Hart Lane.
Yeah, well, City only beat Bournemouth at Bournemouth 1-0 last season as well. So depends how that's going to turn out tomorrow as well. But I do feel confident with Kane. I feel like he's going to get something. He did score 2 against Aston Villa, and I feel he could score maybe 2 against Newcastle tomorrow. I'm taking a punt.
Is there anything that stood out from today's 3 p.m. or in fact last night's game? Any games that have taken place so far, which any players that have stood out for you, which you're thinking, do you know what? Not a bad pick. I'm thinking Mason Mount as an example.
Yeah, there's also, I think Ibuna's got him. Cantwell from Norwich. I do like him. I think Hernandez for Norwich used to start on the left wing, but looks like Cantwell's been taken over on that side. And who else is that? Lanzini. I do like Lanzini. I'm not jumping on the Haller train just yet, even though he scored 2 goals. I'm not jumping on the Haller train just yet. I'll give another 2 or 3 game weeks because I'm not rushing into it with him.
I mean, there's a few people saying in chat about. I just read Sultan Saeed actually in chat saying about the wild card. Block FPL's mentioned apparently on Twitter that he's going to be hitting the wild card.
Well, I did. To be fair, maybe Block FPL listened to what I said. He didn't, but I did say that his team is the prime example of a wildcard team. Admittedly, that was the week leading up to this particular game where he took a -4 instead. But I think that. Sorry, can carry on with what you're saying, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, if I hit the wildcard button just purely out of rage, I'm gonna have like a flurry of players to bring in. So what's the point? There's no players that I'm like really wanting to bring in. Bear with me a sec.
Yeah, I'll continue to. I mean, at the end of the day, Jason's had one bad game week. He's still got quite a few players to go. I mean, do you feel for Jason Penguin? Or are you actually quite glad he's having this bad game week? What are your thoughts?
I'm actually a Liverpool fan, so I'm over the moon. But FPL wise, I'm gutted that Basaka conceded 2 goals and got a yellow card. But...
Why didn't Lundstrom get a 0? He got a yellow card as well. Conceded twice and got a yellow card.
I didn't get it. I got him in my wild card. I was hoping. I took that punt. It didn't work out.
But he's going to be looking at your team. He's going to be one of your starting defenders every week. In fact, if not every single week.
Lundstrom? No. I've got. I'll probably swap him for Kelly. Bring Kelly on.
Kelly?
He's on my bench.
I can see that, but Kelly, you'd have. Well, what I mean is that you're happy to put faith into 2 premium. Well, you know what I mean. 2 top 6 teams and a 4 million. Couple of defenders.
Well, Kelly's not bad. I mean, I'd rather have Kelly versus Villa at home than Lundstrom away to Chelsea.
I can see as well. This has got nothing to do with anything, but I'm confident in playing Gilbert against Crystal Palace because I honestly think that Aston Villa are going to beat them not comprehensively, but I certainly see them winning. Their form at Selhurst Park is just an absolute shambles. They've then got Tottenham away, but then Sheffield United are at home to South. I can see the logic behind this. I'm assuming you are going to be doing a rotation-based substitution here and there, I'm assuming.
What my plan is now, I'm going to roll on my free transfer. I'm going to then have 2 free transfers after game week 4, and then go into the international break with 2 free transfers, basically, and just that's what I'm planning to do.
It's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
I mean, overall, are you actually happy with this the wildcard team when you finally decided it? The game week was confirmed last night. When the game restarted and you looked at my team, did you look at your team and think, I'm actually quite happy with that, or were you like, oh, why did I pick Infall?
I'm happy with my team. I really am. I really just, I think this is, I'd rather have this team for this next few game weeks as well than the last team I had. I made about 9 to 10 changes with this wild card. So I'm happy. I'm happy with this team. Really am.
Yeah. Just to let everybody know, listening on audio, Aubameyang has just come very, very close. It looks like, I don't know if you got the game on, but something to do with Adrian maybe having a bit of the mare just then. But
yeah, it nearly went in. Went over the bar.
I'm watching it. I'm watching the game. Yeah, I think your team's pretty solid. To be fair, I like the idea of saving your transfers in the international break. And another person that's gone with Kane captain. I hope he serves you well. You're only in for a better week, especially if the likes of Sterling and Salah do not return points. Yeah, thanks for joining us, FPL Penguin. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing us your team. Cheers.
Thanks for having me on, and congratulations again on 2,000 subscribers.
Thank you so much. Cheers. I appreciate it. I'm going to have a
See you later, guys.
celebratory ice cream. Cheers, buddy. Thanks.
Savage.
Well, FPL Booners, Boona, are you wanting to gloat about your wildcard team so far?
Guten Tag. I'm feeling good. I'm not going to get ahead of myself because there's a long way to go. But I'm feeling good about there was a few 50-50 decisions I was unsure about, but I stuck to my guns, and so far it's paid off. So I'm happy.
Jason invited you on the show last night to come on today if it all pays off, so to speak. Admittedly, like you just said, we're not fully through the game yet, but are you willing to put your middle finger up to Jason now while you can? While he's in a downer mood, try and put him even down.
Absolutely, I'm loving the fact that he's in a down mood. I'm milking every second of it. I enjoyed that dunk, Ryan clean sheet going. You know that I'm loving it, honestly, Jason. How you feeling, mate? Got to ask the question.
I'm feeling great, mate. No. I mean, it's. I'm angry at United. Really, I'm angry at the result. United's result. FPL is FPL. I mean, you can't have a great week every week, and I'm just hoping that. No. And the thing is, like I said, I've had a really stinky week, but there's a lot of. I mean, the average is going to be pretty bad anyway, and a lot of people have had a bad week. So it's not a case of like. It's like I'm going to be dropping, out of the 100,000 rank. I'm probably going to, I don't know, 15, 20,000 in the world, which at this point in the game
isn't a nightmare, is it?
Which at this point in the game, I'm more than happy with. So, yeah, I mean, it's just frustrating. The games today just seemed like they went against me a little bit, and say that the Rashford penalty miss was kind of like, wow. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Like any other day, that would not happen. Like it feels like everything's kind of gone against some FPL managers in the 1 week. Like you've got the likes of some FPL managers having Ryan, Digne, Wan-Bissaka, and Lundstrom all together 2 points. That's just crazy, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day, it's game week 3. You're better off having a bad game week early on than, like I always keep saying, at a pinnacle. Like I've said about my -8. I'd rather take the -8 now, get it out of the way, rather than doing it at a pinnacle moment of the season when I'm actually really needing the points, not to lose on my rivals. Really, I mean, looking at your team,
the end of, it's like half my team's played. It's not like it's the end of the game week. I've still got potential to get a good score. So yeah, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, I completely agree. Are you still confident in the fact that you haven't captained Harry Kane, Boona?
I am, yeah, because he's enough of a differential, I feel, amongst managers that take the game seriously. Because There are a lot of managers without Harry Kane. So if he does well, I'm happy. But I really do see City going absolutely mental this weekend. They'll be out to avenge their unjustified 2-2 draw against Spurs. And the way they're playing, Sterling, De Bruyne, there's gonna be an absolute riot in my opinion. So I still want to captain the player I feel, and I put this on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw about the fact that a lot of FPL managers really. But I considered going. I was thinking, do I go Kane and Cantwell or do I go Rashford and Maddison? Well, I'm bloody glad I went Cantwell and Kane right now. Is all I'm gonna say. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Cantwell's going to score every week. He's not. But, at the end of the day, this week it seems like it could pay off. So, yeah, I'm happy enough, mate. I think it's looking good. Walker Peters plays and plays well. And then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's still early game. It's still early for you in this game week, really. You've got the triple of Man City and double of Spurs, and you're on 22 points, so I think you're going to finish well above the average and get a green arrow this week. Yeah, so if you get a decent green arrow, that you can say to me that your wildcard paid off, Mr. Boona.
Yeah, I mean, so far, just with the 4 players.
Yeah. You broke up there, Boona.
Yeah, sorry, no, I was saying, so far I've gone from 1. Can you not hear me, no?
I hear you.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that I've gone from 1.3 to 520k. So, with 4 players, that is, so it's not too bad. If I can get into the top 250k this week, that would be a great result from my wildcard, I feel.
Yeah, definitely halve your rank, or more than halve your rank. So, yeah. Any final thoughts, Steve-O?
No, not at all. I just think that at the end of the day, you played your wild card. So far, it's paid off. I'm still of the same opinion as Jason that we're not that great fans of it per se. The Walker Peters sticks out. The Cantwell pick sticks out. Those 2 players aside, the rest of your team is absolutely fine. Are you in that camp though of worried that you don't own Salah, or are you still happy that you've made the choice of going with Mane?
Well, as of now, I'm not at all. I'm watching the Liverpool game, and I've got to tell you, Liverpool do not look themselves. And I'd be extremely surprised if Arsenal didn't score today. They've had a few chances already, and Adrian is it seems like he's affecting the confidence across the whole of the team. So at the moment, it's early days, but I'm kind of happy I've got off the Liverpool defence. But I am still worried because the way, they've conceded in both games, it just would be typical that they keep a clean sheet today. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, Salah's done nothing so far. He's not looked in it.
I've just... Brilliant. I've just thought, you know what? This game's probably going to end up 0-0. And I thought, who's got triple Liverpool defence? Oh, yeah, Brett Mollison. He's wildcarded and he hasn't even got a Liverpool defender. Unbelievable. So for anybody that doesn't know, Brett Mollison is one of our Australian fans. And basically, he had the confidence of going into the season with triple Liverpool defence. He's now hit the wild card, and the team as of now is on 25 points. It's Ederson in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Mina, Maguire, Digne. So he's gone to the other side of Liverpool and gone with double Everton. And then we've got De Bruyne, Mane, Mason Mount, Martial, Sterling, captain. And Pookie, I look at that team and... Oh, I've just realised it's double Man United defence.
Yeah, he's lost 4 clean sheets. Bad luck.
Good Lord. Yeah.
Maybe,
4 players, total of 3 points.
Maybe all those teams with 5 at the back aren't going to do well this week. Maybe. But I mean, like I said, Wan-Bissaka was very unlucky to get that yellow card. Not that I'm just talking about 1 point now, but yeah, he is. I'm not going to be in a rush to get Wan-Bissaka out of my team. He's United's one of United's best defenders, if not the best defender.
Mane almost scored there.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I've got it on catch up.
I'll do some quick admin for everybody that is watching this live right now. If you want to just support the show by hitting that like button, by all means, just do so. If you are enjoying the stream and you haven't subscribed and you want to just see more of our content, simply hit that subscribe button, because we are pretty much a daily show. We are going to be going live tomorrow, Jason, at what time?
Sunday evening. So it's going to be... That's a good question. 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock, right, there we are then. So 8 o'clock tomorrow evening, myself and Jason will be doing the Sunday surgery, where we will reflect over basically your teams, look over them. Do they need surgery or not? It's quite simple, really. I
may need some surgery in my team.
You may need some surgery. So, I mean, Bula, do you think Jason needs surgeries to his teams? Is just the fact that this is a man who's just downbeat after not only has his real life football team done badly, but it has also affected his FPL team too?
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that you bought in Rashford, was it for a -4? That's probably just made things even worse. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I don't think you'd be even thinking that way. Let me just have a quick look at your team. No, there's nothing wrong with your team. There's some people that I've seen that are wildcarding and have wildcarded a team similar to yours, so you should be pretty happy.
Yeah. I completely agree. Should we bring on Andy Salter, Jason?
Yeah, bring him on. Okay.
There's two in the his Discord, and Andy Salter, you're live on the Elite FPL Saturday night call-in, reacting live to the game week that's just happened. In this case, Gameweek 3. During the Liverpool-Arsenal game, we're also broadcasting, and you put your team up in Discord. Hello there, Andy. Just need to unmute your mic, mate. There we are. The unmuted mic is there. I can hear some noise. Andy, are you there? We can hear you loud and clear, my friend.
Perfect.
So far, you've got 12 points. Is that right? Is my math? Oh no, 18 points, including Tom Heaton. Is that right?
Yeah, I've had a good first 3 weeks. I think I'm one player off a good team, so I've got no aspirations to wildcard at this point. So I think Perez is the only one that I want to get rid of.
Yes, exactly the same as me. So your team up at the moment.
Got any money in the bank?
1.9. I actually want. I want to bring in Son, but I don't have enough money. I lost money on...
Bring in Martial, mate.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Everyone's jumped on the Man United bandwagon.
Martial was arguably United's most liveliest player today.
Man United have won 3 out of the last 15 games.
Is that right? Is that right? Wow.
That's correct. And this is the reason I've got no Man
U points, though. That's the point. You're still getting the assists and still getting points. That's a good. It's a good price point. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. I considered next week either bringing in Martial or banking a transfer, and then maybe bringing in Son. And downgrading somebody else, but I'm quite happy with the team at the moment, and the points are reasonable at this stage of the season as well.
Yeah, for people listening on audio, it's Tom Heaton in goal, Digne, Van Dijk, Zinchenko, Lundstrom, 5-man midfield of De Bruyne, Sterling, Salah, Perez, Ceballos, and then Pukki up top. But you've also got Josh King, but you've obviously dropped Josh King for, I'm assuming, Lundstrom. Yeah, I mean, I look at this team and I think, you know what? It's pretty much my team. In fact, it is my team, barring Tom Heaton and Josh King, basically.
Obviously, Lundstrom today blanked. And maybe King gets something against Man City, but I didn't think he would.
I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, you're playing it by the fixtures. This game is all about the fixtures, and certainly Lundstrom having a slightly better fixture than, well, by far a better fixture than a Bournemouth. Although, the last few fixtures at Bournemouth ground have actually been quite tight, so it could end up King getting a penalty potentially, or getting an assist for Wilson in a close 2-1 victory. But you've got Salah playing in this game tonight. You've also got Van Dijk. So far, it sounds like Arsenal on top. I suppose based on that simple information, I suppose we're all wanting to be having a 0-0. I'm guessing.
I never thought this would be a high-scoring game, but.
Really?
I'm thinking of downgrading Salah to Mane to free up some funds. But I really wanted the Perez swap to be Son. So I wanted to bring in Mane and Son. And then my team is set. I like the 5 midfield. For me, there's more value in playing 5 in midfield than 2 or 3 in attack because of the additional points
and price points as well. Yeah,
exactly. I
mean, I think that you're on the right track with that. I think I like the moves. Salah down to Mane, Perez up to Son. If you can do those, then I think that's your moves. Yeah, keep an eye on Son, and against Newcastle this week, and then. You get a good look in.
Obviously, Son is not guaranteed to start. This is the thing. He just comes back. I know he's fresh, but he's not guaranteed to start. And Spurs have abundance of midfield players. I'm a Tottenham fan, and but he cannot guarantee he will start. But if he does, then he could come in with a big haul.
Oh yeah, we all know what Son's capable of. I mean, he was absolutely on fire. Last season, after the Asia games, and I think, to be honest with you, it's a sensible move. Both of those moves are sensible moves. Just so I was watching.
Yeah, I took a hit last week. I bought in De Bruyne, Pukki, and Ceballos for a -4. But
as in last week, as in you got Pukki's hat trick, De Bruyne's points, and Ceballos.
No, I did not get the hat trick, but it's rare that I bring in players before the press conferences. But I bought De Bruyne and Pukki in because I anticipated that they would rise in price, and of course they did. Mm-hmm. But then in the same light, Perez and King have also dropped in price as well. So I've lost 0.2 there.
But at the end of the day, your team is, as you've just stated, pretty much set up. You've got money in the bank. It's pretty good. I mean, Andy, you've been a supporter of this show for a very, very long time. How long have you been with the Elite FPL podcast for?
Look, I was at the start. I think I was there when you had less than 20 subscribers, and I have to say, technology-wise, you've come on leaps and bounds, and I think the double act between you and Jason is fantastic. But you've also caught in the market as well, so this is more community. Other YouTube podcasts are more about giving information. This is a community where everybody can get involved. So you've actually cornered the market, and I think it's really good.
Yeah, I mean,
I watch all the podcasts, but not many of them live. I generally watch them in the morning after I do some work, and so I watch back all of the podcasts that you present, and I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good double.
It's a good double act. You two are a good double act. The Steve O rants is brilliant. The ice cream thing I thought was a joke, but it wasn't. And I was almost on the floor in laughter with the ice cream thing. And then, of course, you come in with an ice cream the next time as well, so it was very funny.
Thank you, Andy. And like we've always said, we're not a tip site. We're not here to baffle you with statistics, and we're just here to have a conversation about FPL and to do it with the community. And we're always grateful that we have that ability to get you guys on air and to have a shout about your team.
I think it's brilliant. And also the energy and enthusiasm that you two bring in makes this thing really work so well. Plus the technology you brought in as well.
How long have you been with because you've only just really joined the Discord group, I believe.
Yeah, I've been watching the podcast, the streams, but not live. I've only just joined the Discord, so I tried to get on last night and I screwed up. So now I'm getting used to it, so I can join these things.
And how does your experience differ from watching live to watching on a replay? Because I'm telling you now, whenever I've watched a live stream, even when I've watched Jason do live streams, it's a totally different experience. It's like it's almost like you just said, you're wanting to actually have a conversation with the people watching live rather than listening to the presenter, as weird as that sounds, but you want to be, just like you said, part of a community that's we're all embracing each other.
People in chat.
The most frustrating thing is watching the streams back and wanting to comment, but of course you can't because they're recorded, and you actually want to comment, but you cannot. But
you can still you can leave a comment. We always answer comments after the streams, though. So if anyone is watching this on the replay and you want something to say, then just type a comment up, and we'll get back to you on that. And
I've one final thing I'd like to say is last night I went to watch Levante versus Villarreal. In the first half, Villarreal had 15 shots, scored 1 goal. In the second half, 70 minutes, there was a controversial decision. It went to VAR. For 5 minutes, people were arguing, and eventually a penalty was given. The penalty was taken. The keeper moved off the line before the penalty was taken. There was another 5 minutes after which the goalkeeper got booked, and the penalty was retaken. It was just chaos. So it's not just in English football; it also happens in Spanish football as well.
What's your thoughts though on? Did you see the VAR decisions today, or the lack of
the Chelsea one? I
mean the kick in the knee. I mean, like we see it time and time again. Like a player just has to brush past and fall to the ground, and it's almost like a penalty is the next thing that's decided, and then to outrightly kick a player in the box. Okay, he didn't see him coming, but nevertheless he was challenging the ball and got kicked in the knee, and the VAR just was the commentators, like, not today, but there's been like talks that these VAR refs, they're kind of discouraged from kind of going against the referee or something. It has to be like really like quite serious for them to actually reverse a penalty.
I thought the Chelsea decision was a penalty, for sure. The Man United game, the Rashford.
Apparently, there's a VAR check. There's a VAR check for a red card. Apparently, on Salah.
No, wasn't given. But Pepe was through all the way, 1-on-1 with Adrian, and he's just it got saved.
Wow.
Boona, there's a lot of chat about Pepe. Boona. Yeah, and Boona, there's a lot of chat about Pepe in this particular live chat at the moment, and they're all saying basically that Pepe's looking absolutely phenomenal. Jason did call it, I think a couple of weeks ago, that someone that had Pepe in their team, their actual team, looked like something that would be what everybody would have by game week 4 or 5 in their wild cards. Your thoughts on Pepe so far?
He's looked really lively, mate. He's going to be a special player, especially for FPL. He just, at the moment, he's lacking a bit of composure, but he looks deadly. Like the defense look scared whenever he's got the ball. He's going to be good. I don't like that as a Spurs fan, obviously, but he looks very good.
Excellent. Andy, have you got any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, the other thing to consider is obviously Champions League is coming up. So the top the teams that are in Champions League: Tottenham, Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool. Not Chelsea. They're going to be rotating. So this is why I also worry about bringing in. I'm a Tottenham fan. Bringing in Tottenham players with such a big midfield, where depending on the draw for the Champions League, players could be rested in the league and be playing in the Champions League. So I think this is the point where I'll probably wildcard.
Right, interesting. So we're talking what, in 2-3 weeks' time? No, it's longer
I think
than
end of September.
that. Yeah. Wow. So you're looking at a wild card at the end of September then. I mean, to be fair, looking at your team, you don't need to wild card. So I think, yeah, I mean, even me, I'm not looking to wild card at all, and I can't see when I'm going to be wild carding anytime soon. Anyway.
I think I'll probably wildcard around the international break, and looking at Pepe's fixtures, well, Arsenal's fixtures, keeping Ceballos in as well, and just looking at these fixtures: away at Watford, home to Aston Villa, away at United, home to Bournemouth, away at Sheffield United, at home to Crystal Palace, at home to Wolves, away at Leicester, at home to Southampton, away at Norwich, at home to Brighton, away at West Ham. Oh my God. They've got an absolutely gorgeous run of fixtures coming up to mid-December. So very much, well, you know, I've been watching the game, obviously, a little bit behind you guys, because I'm streaming at the moment as well. And I'm seeing what Pepe's doing in this game, and you're 100% right, Bruno. The Liverpool defence just looked petrified of him.
Yeah, they really do. And I don't think it's helped that obviously Alisson's out. Adrian just gives them nightmares, honestly. He looks terrible.
Yeah, well, he made the save. It wasn't a hard save, and Pepe wasn't the best finish from Pepe, but you know, you just think that, you know, as he gets more confidence, like you said, I mean, he could be slotting those away quite easily. What speed he's got as well, the pace, the skill, you know.
If he had a bit more composure right now, obviously this is his first full 90 minutes, in the Prem. Yeah, you know, the more he plays, he's going to become a weapon, isn't he? Really, he's good.
Definitely. Thank you ever so much, Andy, for coming on.
Right, guys. Keep up the good work, and I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Speak soon.
Thank you.
Speak soon. I'm pretty happy if you want to call it now, Steve-O.
Yeah, I'm really not fussed, mate.
Yeah. Guys, we're gonna call it now. Thank you ever so much for joining us for this kind of like reaction stream for Saturday's games. The big one will be tomorrow night. The Sunday surgery will be the big stream, where you guys can come on and talk to us about your team's performance this weekend. We won't drag this out because it's been torturous. And Steve-O finally had a game week where he's seen me do worse than him.
Not really. Well, again, not really. It's just you're more dejected because of a real life thing. I get more dejected because of fantasy football. At the end of the day, we've got exactly the same players, barring the odd one here and there. And to be honest, I can guarantee you now that it'll all end up with me getting exactly the same points as you, because Ashley Barnes is probably going to do nothing. Pope's going to get the same points as Ryan. You know how the drill works. I get exactly the same points as you. I never catch you up. It's just an absolute waste of time, me up against you. That's why I just concentrate. I'm now just think it's like Captain Gaming said, stop concentrating on Jason's team. Concentrate on your own game. And that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm just thinking, you know, at the end of the day, the players that you've got are players that I would want anyway. I'm not an idiot. I know what players I want. It's just the fact that I stupidly started off game week 1 not going with my gut, but we don't need to go over that again. So yeah,
pleasure as always. Thank you, Bruno, for coming on and gloating about your wild card. And
you're welcome, mate.
Yeah, it's not over. The game week's not over yet. Let's see if we can
No, it should only get better.
Let's catch some gappage, as you say. Thank you, everyone in chat. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Just of interest, whereabouts are you? Not in the world, but are you near like a to just ask a couple of questions. So I just needed to get the door for a second.
No
Sorry.
problem,
This
mate.
is what happens when you're live.
What's going on?
Not really. I'm waiting to go to gym. What about yourself?
Live on YouTube doing a stream.
Why do you feel that you're constantly changing your team, mate? Is it just
It's
there's
just
just
I'm
so many
hearing
ideas?
So many ideas, so many different perspectives. I blame Brett Mollison for his 5 at back, because when you see my new team...
Wow.
Brighton home, they couldn't buy a goal in the last season.
Well, I don't know. Dan's got Glenn Murray. I think he'll have a word to say about that.
No.
I'm detecting possibly a German accent. I'm probably completely way out. But where are you calling us from?
South Africa.
On the first day, I literally just typed in FPL, like first draft, and yours came up like first. So I thought, oh, well, I'll watch one of the live streams when it comes on. And then I thought, this is a bit long, isn't it? About 2 hours in. And then 3 hours later, well, an hour later, I was like, yeah, these seem alright, you know. Steven's not that bad.
I have one question for you. I want you to predict the order of the Elite FPL ranking. So, like, who do you think will finish first, second, and third out of y'all three this season?
So it's certainly, no disrespect to Dan, but it's certainly going to be between me and Jason. And right now, as it stands, I'd go with Jason because my history suggests that I'm going to be having a bad season.
So I've got the 5 at the back. I just see a lot of value there. I feel like if I don't have Salah, I can spread the money elsewhere and maybe get the points another way.
All the teams now, except for obviously Salah and Sterling, these players, a lot of players are going to change towards the start of the season just because of new transfers, injuries that could happen, and all of that. So for me to tell you now, like personally right now, I'd say definitely if Tammy Abraham or Batshuayi are cheap, I'd get one of them just because I don't care about the Man United. We can score against them, at least 2 or 3.
Hey guys, this season we're using Discord. It's a text and voice application where you can talk all things FPL with fellow community members. You can post your team in the Rate My Team, talk in the general chat, you can look at transfer news, look at awesome GIFs, sign up for our Cash Mini League, look at our previous podcasts, and even join us live on air in one of our streams. We look forward to seeing you guys. Link is in the description, or look at the code on screen.